Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are proud to present our next two speakers, Paul Craddock and Eric Santalisas with RoundTower. Please give them a warm welcome.
Thanks, everyone. All right. The seats are clearly packed, so, we can all squish. I'm just kidding. Welcome to VMware Cloud on AWS. This is going to be a little bit of a talk about some automation, integration, and some of the API work we've done. Let's jump right into introduction. So my name's Paul Craddock. I'm a senior cloud and DevOps engineer at RoundTower. I've been in technology for 12 plus years. I'm one of our 6 VCDXs on staff, so deep VMware skills. And then, a few years ago, I saw cloud and thought, the internet and cloud might not be a fad that's going away, so maybe I'll start playing with that. So I've got some skill sets around VMware on AWS and as well as AWS, and if there were another hyperscaler, I might have some skill sets there as well. Oh, let me go back.
And good afternoon. My name is Eric Santalisas. I'm a consulting systems engineer here at RoundTower. I've been at RoundTower for 5 years. I used to be a customer. I started my journey with Amazon in 2009, and I've been focused on Amazon and VMware Cloud on AWS. So what is VMware Cloud on AWS? Have you guys heard about it? Show of hands. Anyone using it today? Awesome. So a little bit of repetitive here. If you have seen the solution, you know what it is. Basically, it's a way for us to deploy your VMware software-defined data center in Amazon's cloud as a managed service. You can connect it up to your on-prem infrastructure and also leverage services from Amazon natively in that VMC cluster. So from an overview perspective, you have 2 different pools of resources. You have your management plane and you have your compute plane. And with the solution, you get NSX, you get vSAN, and your vCenter.
Yeah. Yep.
Moving on, how many people have seen or heard of HCX, Hybrid Cloud Extension? So the way I like to talk about Hybrid Cloud Extension is that it's a magic in a box, right? It does a lot of things. One of the things that it does is SD-WAN acceleration. It does basic migration services. It does layer 2 extension. It does bulk migrations or scheduled migrations. So it really is a very versatile tool. This comes with your VMware Cloud on AWS deployment, and it's free to use. All the same rules apply with bandwidth utilization and VP. You can run this across Direct Connect if you wanted to, but it also builds the VPN tunnels for you between the on-prem and the cloud appliances.
All right, so everyone's heard about the solution, and several of you are already using it. So we don't want to spend too much time, but we wanted to level set. So some of what we began to see in the market is that VMware Cloud on AWS lifts hard workloads, or what we would consider hard workloads. We found a lot of clients across different verticals that have a lot of Oracle RAC and still some old SQL clusters sitting around. Obviously, the correct answer is to refactor that stuff to RDS. And that's great if you have unlimited time to do that. But a lot of us don't have unlimited time to refactor. And if you're a business that's got deep dependencies on RAC, and you have RAC-aware applications, you lose that in RDS, right? We don't have that. And so what we built was a solution that allows us to automate the spinning up of an SDDC, which is not in and of itself that incredible. That's kind of what the point is, right? We just do it without a GUI. So any of you who have deployed it know you got to log into a GUI to do that. We've built some code around that to allow us to just do it programmatically. And then also to offer Oracle as a service directly through this. Ideally, you wouldn't necessarily leave your workload sitting there, right? But what it does allow you to do is meet timelines. So if you have a data center you need to shut down in 6, 12 months, and you have 40 applications to refactor, pick your low-hanging fruit, refactor for sure, but you can also lift and have RAC running in VMC across connect away from all of our services. And I can still have RAC functioning and RAC-aware applications running in my cloud. So now I've exited my data center, and I've still got my functionality, and now I can focus on refactoring and continuing to run the business. So that's kind of some of the hard workloads and some of where we see VMC playing a lot. Again, we're huge proponents of refactor and doing it the right way, but this should just be another tool in your tool belt. And I've forgotten my clicker here.
So Paul, question for you. Customers that we have that are using this solution, what other data challenges that they have, other challenges that they may have with Oracle and SQL workloads?
Well, so licensing certainly is a challenge, right? I mean, a lot of the, if any of you have been around an Oracle audit before, it's very painful. And so the same licensing that applies on-prem works right here. Also, I can customize core counts, so I can get the nodes to run exactly as they need to, hopefully reducing some licensing. And again, I'm pushing stuff out to native solutions, so maybe it's just Oracle I have to push out here, or legacy SQL. But I do have some capacity that I can move applications if I need to. Jumping into a little bit more of architecture, and not to deep dive, again, this is only a 15-minute chat, and we'd like to get to some of the automation stuff, so we can certainly deep dive the solution a little more, but high level, I can have a rack node or SQL running with clustered shared disks here in an SDDC, and then I can certainly do disaster recovery on that. That's slightly less automated because with shared disks I can't use some of the services, but we can certainly help walk you through how you can still get full DR out of region and survive, a region or even an AZ failure. I don't know if there's anything you want to say on that.
So one of the other benefits that you can use with SQL is stretched clustering between availability zones. So you can have half of your cluster in AZ1, half of your cluster in AZ2. And if you're running SQL, you can run a SQL cluster across those AZs. So if you're trying to have higher availability for your applications and not be dependent on a single AZ, this is a way to do it with little to no downtime on a cutover should an event occur.
All right, so now that we've talked enough about VMware Cloud on AWS, let's get into some of the automation and integration. And again, we might not have time to deep dive everything, but first of all, when you begin to look at VMware Cloud, we want to make sure that we leverage as many native services as possible, right? So Elastic Load Balancing, Route 53 for DNS, RDS where you can. If you don't have a rack requirement, move it to RDS for sure. If you have archival data, certainly skinny it down as much as you can. EFS for backups if you want to do that. Again, leverage as many native services as you can when beginning down this path. One more, there we go. And we can see the native service integration continuing more and more into the platform, right? We've got, at the bottom here, we've got EC2 and S3. I can talk directly out the back end of my, really, ESX host, directly to those services internally, thus not having to pay egress charges, all that stuff. But the main point here is the services, VMware Cloud is becoming a first-class citizen, and more services are getting integrated all the time. So one of the next big things that we should all be doing is writing it all in code. Now, I'll be honest, I went into infrastructure because I hate code. And so I just went into infrastructure so I don't have to code anymore. And then we decided that infrastructure as code was a really great thing. And it is admittedly a great thing. I just didn't like it at first. And it takes a lot of discipline to not violate your own rules about writing it all in code and doing it the right way. All it takes is one time for you to say, I need to add a disk to this thing, and I'm just going to do it really fast. Then your code it's useless, right? So I encourage anyone who's like me who didn't like to code, just bite the bullet, learn it, and do it, because it saves you from a recovery perspective. I can spin the whole thing back up quickly. It really does make it easier if I do it the right way, stick in a CIDC pipeline, I have validation on the back end. So anyway, that's one of the services we'd highly recommend. Admittedly, the VMware Cloud solution with CloudFormation kind of stops at the gate of the vCenter, right? So I can get all that spun up, but the VMs inside needed a little automation built, which is kind of where we went with the solution. I don't know if there's anything you want to add on that.
Sure. So this is CloudFormation. So the same way you build and you deploy infrastructure on AWS as a native service, you're doing it against the VMC cluster. So in this CloudFormation template, you can actually launch and deploy and configure some of those services that Paul was talking about before. So if you wanted to automatically set up backups, or you want to automatically set up S3 buckets, or configure DNS, you can do all of this and script it and have it in your source control.
Yeah. So digging a little deeper into some of what we chose to do, we used Python and wrapped that basically to deploy Lambda. So now I can, from a command line, deploy an SDDC, put all my variables in. Because again, I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, but when you spin up an SDDC, you're logging into a GUI. You're manually typing into a GUI. Here are my IP ranges. Here's all that stuff. That's great if you're going to do it once or twice, but if you do it a lot, programmatic is better. So we wrote some Python code, wrapped it around basically to kick out Lambda scripts to do everything I needed. And just as another side note, for any of you who do have VMware Cloud or are looking at it, you can use S3 to host VMs and hook them in as content libraries. So don't put templates in your SDDCs, especially if you're doing DevOpsy things like tearing up and down all the time. Put them in an S3 bucket, update them one time, and you can push them into your SDDC. So that is much better than having to push templates around all the time.
It also gives you another advantage of reducing your storage utilization within the cluster.
Yeah.
VMC clusters tend to be storage bound depending on your workloads, but that gives you an opportunity to offload some of that into native services. I don't know if you can see it up here, but in really small print, you can see that we have a Slack URL and some channel information. So while this Lambda is running, it's actually pushing event updates into Slack for us.
Speaking of Slack, unfortunately, we had to choose one messaging platform to start with, right? And so we can certainly do this in Slack, but a lot of enterprises are deploying Microsoft Teams. More and more of them are, and certainly the same thing works in Slack. But we built some automation around Teams and Lambda and built a chat bot basically. So think I'm a developer and I want to turn on a VM or turn off a VM or kick out some sort of action. Instead of having to log into an SDDC or vCenter at all, or even the VM, just chat at your SDDC bot and then have it do it, right? Or for audit trail. So if you want to know how many hosts are in an SDDC at any given time, maybe every day at 5 o'clock, it goes the other way and kicks out, I have 4 nodes, I have X amount of compute, I have X amount of data stores, right? We found that that's actually fairly challenging to keep your hands around. The service won't let you run at 100%. It will automatically add nodes so you can scale up, which is really great. They don't do that for free, and so you'd really like to know if you added a node and why. So this is somewhat audit trail friendly, and then also you can do if I wanted to kick something off, deploy VMs, I could have approvals built right in here. So someone else has to type approve, and now my ledger of what happened is written right in Microsoft Teams for audit and security.
So we actually have a customer of ours who, he's a vice president of cloud operations, and he's using this Lambda plugin with Teams because he wants to know at any given point how many VMs are running in his environment or how many servers is he running. Has he gone above his reserved capacity? Does he need to buy more reserved capacity? So this gives him an opportunity to be able to interrogate this platform, get back the data himself, and not have to go ask his IT team.
Yeah, and we didn't put it on the slide because it's really not that useful, but Alexa uses Lambda on the back end, so we actually did some development around that, and just for fun, we can ask her how our SDDC is doing. Again, no one would ever do that because you just yell in the room and say, spin up a VM, and then she would do it. It would be terrible, but we can do it, so we did. We only have like 1 minute left, and we'd like to save some time for questions, but I'll leave you with this thought. If you could lift some of the hard workloads, some of the things that ultimately we all want to refactor, what would you do with it, right? So if I've got 20 terabytes of Oracle data that has all kinds of historics, analytics, whatever you want to do, and I could sit that across connect away from Lambda, I could do some automation around it, or I could do some analytics on it, and I could do that without having to refactor and begin to see value instantly. I mean, what would you build? So I guess that's the first question to you guys to start noodling on is what would I build, and then how would I continue to leverage the literally hundreds of services that Amazon has. Questions? That is way too many hands to track.
All right, no
Any
questions.
questions? You get to talk on a mic, and it's a lot of fun.
It is.
So we have a booth here over in the Venetian in the main hall. Our booth number is
It's in the 3724.
3724.
If it's not that, it's close to that.
We got lots of giveaways. Please stop by if you want to chat or know some more about our solutions. We're there to talk to you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.